Hey Anthony,
Hello.
good to see you as always, and thank you for stopping by. And I'm going to start with a fun one today. What does it mean to be human?
You can look at it on a couple of levels in the biological, but then also the sociological. In biology, we have a lot in common with everything, with animals and other materials in the world. But from the sociological, you want to point to our brains, our consciousness. Consciousness may be the thing in that we invented a language of symbols that bridge between an actual tree and the representation of tree. And we're able to do that where animals just have the tree in front of them. And whatever that, I don't even know if using the word whatever that means to them. It could be just whatever the tree, whatever they need from the tree, the animal will instinctively decide that the tree is something I need or not. And then if it's not, they just don't pay any attention to it. Whereas we have in a brain a non-stop recording device that records pretty much a 360-degree consciousness of us. And then we have other functions in the brain that filter that to, and we have ability to adjust those filters, whether we know it or not, to help us arrive at the consciousness that we wish to have. And that's kind of like the game I'm in around coaching and self development, self-actualization. In that, are you the one guiding the sliders, or is something else or someone else guiding the sliders for you on what consciousness you choose to walk around with?
Can you elaborate on that a bit more? To be specific, do you mean, are you kind of beating your own drum, or are you walking to the beat of other people's drums? Or
Yeah, I think that's an apt metaphor. My approach could take some very tactical requests from a client. That a client is asking me to solve a communication problem with a colleague. But at the basis of what I do for my clients is to guide them to the highest outcome would be that they're beating their own drum all the time. But there's a caveat in the fact that we have to interact with others to do things and to get things done. You have to agree that your drum sometimes has to beat with other drums, or sometimes you just have to stop beating your drum and be part of someone else's drum beat. But you understand that you're doing that in service of your own bigger drum beat, your own personal drum beat.
And hopefully those beats line up in the best cases. So communication being one of the bigger pieces you kind of referenced in there about the what it means to be human.
I don't want to. Communication sounds so technical. I would say communication is in an umbrella of our presence in and among each other, and that we as humans, I believe, have a deeper well of engagement around that presence. And I believe animals have that, but I think they have it purely for survival. Where we have it, survival seems to have been among the other things that we do, but we also have, and is an advantage, is it a challenge, is it a disadvantage, that our presence also guides us to things like love and companionship and bonding and things like that. Well, that's kind of survival, isn't it? Well, not always. People bond and then they don't bond anymore. Where animals just say, "Oh, we're set, we got it," and this unit is safe until we're attacked or the environment changes. I think communication is part of this broader, more amorphous, almost, and I think that's where spirit comes in. A spirit, connection of spirit, and that's, to me, the beauty of spirit is that it hopefully transcends language as well.
It resonates a lot, and it's one of the reasons I do this show like this is to kind of add on to that point of communication. Is it's not just about the words and the tone that someone is presenting, it's about everything else they're doing amidst those interactions, and there's so much nuance and detail that is often overlooked, and it's just so important in human life, and I think that's really important. But the other thing you talked about towards the end there was survival, and I have a line I wrote for something which is, animals are simple by nature, humans are complicated by choice. Right? As we've evolved, we've created more choice for ourselves and more luxury and ultimately complication. And does that resonate with you? Does that feel like the idea of a simpler time? Is that of interest to you, I guess?
Yeah, and that's it's of interest in that I also push in those directions toward bringing simplicity to my clients. And I just completed I developed a system personally to help me personally better track my higher aspirational goals. And how do I get them into my daily calendar? Why am I leaving them off? Why am I not getting to them? It's a long story, but it got to a point where it was simple enough and it was functional enough for me for a couple years. I said, I'm just going to share this with other people. So I did a session last year around this time, and I did the second one this year. And the feedback I got was that you just made this, I said, at the end of the session, I always ask this, whether I'm this session or any session I do as part of my practice, is what questions do you have? What questions did you come in with that weren't answered today? Or what questions came up during the session that weren't answered? And it was silence, and someone just said, no, you just made this so incredibly easy, and the way you explained it was so simple. I'm thinking something you said about that animals are simple by nature, humans are complicated by choice. I'd like to push back on that. And I think, again, through the invention of language, or the appropriation of language, and the fact that we have been in and around language for generations. I'm not what's the language people, the whatever they're called. I don't know how many generations we go back to when language started, or even when symbolic communication started. So with that knowledge that language is ingrained in our generations, is it really complicated by choice? Do we have that choice anymore? Or is it just like, oh, this is us, this is how we are? And that's why there's so much self-help out there of like, let's get back to simplicity. Let's simple things up. There's a magazine called Real Simple, and simple lifestyles are trends and things like that. But I don't know that people really wake up or grow up having the choice to be simple like animals. And I think being simple like animals is maybe not the best way, and maybe it's overly idealistic. But also I think because there is value in the advantage we do have over the animals around this consciousness and this spirit.
So then let's when you were younger, when you were a kid, which by default was simpler world to live in. What do you think if that world was still here today? Would that be a good thing? Would it be a bad thing? A bit of a mixture?
Are you saying the world I lived in when I was younger, or my brain and me in that world when I was younger?
The former, the world that you lived in during that time.
I don't know that there's any difference.
Please elaborate.
I know that there's, and maybe that's because I work actively to keep my own choices at the front of the table. So whether it's this, highly contentious social world that we're in, that's being put upon by all this new technology, or whether it was just like a phone with a wire in our kitchen, and that's all we had. I could almost say some things were more complicated back then. So I think we have to not accept, but we have to build an awareness of what is, and use that as a beginning point to find our place in it.
I love that, and to kind of encapsulate it, just to become clear, essentially, you live in the same world you did when you were a kid. It's just a bit different now, and it's just kind of grown up a bit. And for you, it's, as it has always been, is being present and just making like the best and the most of what is going on in any given moment.
Yeah, best and most. Again, terms that have dubious value. Just making, staying in and making and reflecting. That's another thing that one of the things that led me to this task management system was really getting into the act of journaling 15 plus years ago. And I continue to do it at various levels. And I have kind of like 3 systems that I use. And one is still long form writing. Another is a daily list. And the other is this goals tracking thing that translates into my daily calendar.
And how long did they take you to develop and then implement? Because for me, and this is something that's important with Q, is habit building. Right, we all have bad habits, we have good habits, but you can certainly build good habits, and those are good habits that you've built over time. Like, how difficult was that process, kind of becoming aware that you needed them and then creating and implementing them?
Well, it's interesting because for most of my adult life, I've had an interest in some types of journaling, and I've had different notebooks laying around that had 3 pages in them and then just cast aside. And somehow, that's and I'm getting to the point of the advantage of keeping your periscope up and trying new things. And 15 plus years ago, a friend said, I did this thing a bunch of years ago to help me write my thesis, and I want to do it again, and I'm getting a bunch of people together. Do you want to join me? And what he said was, it's this thing called the Artist's Way that a woman in the film industry started because she was stuck, and she did what I did. She actually made a system for herself. And when people saw that it actually helped her get unstuck and get back in the game of selling her work, they said, you should bottle this and do it. And she did, and she made a whole separate industry for herself. And one of the absolutes that she said, what you must do every day is something called the morning pages, which was write 3 pages a day, which is a major commitment. And that's a whole nother piece of habit building. But I did, and I stuck with it. And I long after the morning pages, 12 lessons, I went through it, ended, I just continued the morning pages for years. And then somehow in that, the I started doing studies of like inspirational journals and different calendar follows and different books like To Do, Doing, Done, Getting Things Done, and others, Brandon Burchard or something, these people that, promise you the world and like in 90 days. 12-Week Year was another important book. And I just started making all these folded sheets of paper because the thing in the back of my brain was saying, your problem is you're not looking at your goals on a regular basis. You put them in the front of your journal and then you're going to page 47 and you don't look at page 1 on a regular basis. So what I ended up doing was just creating, and I tried like several iterations. So the long answer to your question is this process took a steady work of a couple years to get it to something that ended up, it was like all these folded pieces of paper. I have like folders full of this stuff, and that it was like a journal that had pages that folded out. And then it just like kept getting simpler and simpler to a point where it just boiled down to a sheet I write at the end of the year that has all the things I'd like to do in the next 12 months. And then this folded 8-panel, 8.5 by 14 legal size paper that the front fold of it has, this is what I want to attain in this coming month. And then behind it are weeks 1 through 5, and then a couple extra panels for just random thoughts that come in that you don't want to lose. So yeah, it became a habit and the same thing with journaling was what I noticed was when I wasn't doing it more than when I was doing it. And that's an interesting aspect as well. Because the third thing that I do is a list at night. Because again, through journaling, I recognized that I kept putting off my own personal acceptance of joy, believe it or not. And it was just like, yeah, I'll be happy when ... My eye always on the horizon, but you realize scientifically the horizon is always at the end. You never get to a horizon. The horizon's always there, but it's always as far away as you could possibly get. So I literally had to school myself to start saying, well, you got to find joy every day. And I started that list 6 years ago. And every night I write 5 or 6 things or whatever, however many it is. And I include tough stuff, but I try and put the tough stuff in a perspective of broadness. And again, not that I'm being put upon, but that I acknowledged it and faced it in some form or another. So again, why I brought that up and why I brought the act of like, I feel that when I'm not journaling, it's the same thing, is that I don't get like sparks of joy when I write these things down on a daily basis. But the advantage to me is that when I'm in the day-to-day and a difficult situation pops up, it's just like, okay, all right, now what? I wrote a blog post a couple months ago that really resonates, and I like it a lot because I've been thinking about it, and the words just came together, and I got a gift of a quote from Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin, of all people, is that the concepts of good and bad are illusions. And I don't want to go all woo-woo on you, but it's basically the idea of getting stuck in good and bad is the illusion. That bad sucks, and I don't, so, okay, so now what? What else? That's what I tell people. That's what I trained in creativity at Buffalo State University. How might we? But the same thing is, well, this is great. We're crushing it out there. I want to stay in this place forever. Well, that's not good either, because the world's going to change. Your market's going to change. Your product's going to change. All the people that are dealing with tariffs, it changed. They didn't plan it. They didn't expect it. And it was good before the tariffs. So what now? Now what? Now what? A lot of people that had to make changes. My brother and his family run our family dry cleaners. During COVID, they all kept people employed by turning the seamstresses into making cloth masks and other things that they could do, that COVID told them they needed to do this. So what's good and what's bad, it goes back to the parable, this very well-known Chinese parable. You know, the guy, the farmer, and his horse ran away, and the neighbors go, well, that's bad. And he goes, yeah, well, we'll see. Well, the horse comes back with 5 more wild horses. So he has now 5 horses instead of one. And they go, well, that's good. And he goes, yeah, really, we'll see. So his kid gets on one and tries to tame it and breaks his leg. And he goes, well, that's really bad. And he goes, yeah, we'll see. And then, the government comes and takes all the young men off to war, and his kid can't go. So what's good or bad? Wait a minute and see what happens. Or more importantly, don't wait a minute. But don't act crazily either. Settle in. And again, look at the big picture of the choices that you've set out for your own life. Say, where does this good or bad thing fit?
I like that perspective, and there's a few things in there. The joy aspect, finding it every day, it's something that's been on my mind for a long time, and what I've come to understand from personal experience is that I feel joy when I'm learning stuff and I'm growing. And if you can do that consistently, which is obviously the ambition of Q, that's a consistent sense of joy, and in many cases during the air quotes bad, as you say, right? There's these moments which feel negative, and they are, of course, the experience isn't a great one, but there is so much opportunity in those moments and so much value if you do look at it in the right way. But yeah, I love all of that, and I would, for me, as I'm just thinking about good and bad, like for me, good is if you're growing. Bad is if you're not, and I guess that's kind of that misperception I guess how does joy play into growth for you? You're a very curious person. I think I know that from experience, but also even from this interview, I think it's quite palpable. How has that curiosity helped you find that joy in every day?
I don't know, because I think, as I said earlier, I had to recognize that something in my past, my parents were just really focused on keeping it all together, and we didn't have a lot growing up, but we had the security. There was this family business but his brother ran it, and my dad was getting a small paycheck on a weekly basis, but they kept it together, and so it wasn't like we had a lot to celebrate, but they had a group of friends that were like our aunts and uncles, and they knew how to have fun. But there was always this undercurrent of, are we going to make it on a weekly basis? And I wonder if that fed into my undercurrent of living my life and just trudge along. So I didn't really get joy from the curiosity and growing, because I was the most curious, and I was the outsider, outlier in my family to go into the creative arts and things like that. And as an adult, I had to school myself back into, almost hardwire joy back into my life. And I take it from much more than just being curious and just more than growing. It's just that, again, I find that being alive on a daily basis, and I guess it boils down to how present am I? And that's where the joy comes from.
Elaborate on that a bit more. Being present, how does that change things?
I'm here with you right now, and I'm not thinking about what I have to do in an hour or what I did an hour ago.
Ditto. Okay, great. The last few minutes, let's talk about age. What do you think has improved for you as you've aged, and what has gotten worse? What has gotten more difficult?
I guess I think what improved is, just a willingness to accept that certain things are beyond knowledge and more about wisdom, and that that even more so in this time, I've become even more willing to be open and accepting of other things, other people, other concepts, other framings, and I got to say, most of that came from 30 years ago when I came in contact and involved with the people in the creativity program that was founded all here in Buffalo. And it was like the school at Buff State and this annual conference that still runs called the Creative Problem Solving Institute. And that action guides me in a big way. I don't know what's more difficult. Again, I follow this path of if it's difficult, you just got to ask, so what about it? What do I need to know? And the path of the creativity program that these guys, the process these guys invented is used all over the world. I mean, the design thinking is built exactly on the framing that these guys invented. And it's basically, you have a problem, well, make sure you know what problem you have by clarifying it. What do you know about the problem? What do you think or feel about the problem? That's gathering data about it. And then set yourself an aim, so if you are clear on what your problem is and what you think you know about it, what could be a statement that would be forward acting that would generate new ideas about it? So you'd go from I wish to how might I blah blah blah, and then throw a lot of ideas at it and say, oh, from all this combination of rich and outbound ideas, I think I'm going to try this. Well, how strong is that try? What do you love about it? What concerns you about it? And then you put a plan together to implement it. So living under that framing, there's really nothing to stop me from making anything better.
Again, I love that. That's just, again, to summarize, it just feels like you're just consistently getting better because you're consistently doing all the things that add value to your life and looking at your life as to, okay, this isn't perfect. I'd like to get closer to that. Let's see what I can do. And that's just amazing to see and inspiring.
Or even to level that off, and like this might be a reframing of what better is that accepting that acting, reflecting, assessing, back into acting. And maybe that's as good as better is going to be.
Self-reflection is a wonderful tool in that mix.
And I would build on the thing that the tool that I use to help people get their year straight is break into what most people would acknowledge are the main life categories of job, career, family, community, health, wellness, spirit, and maybe fun, wellness, spirit, leisure. But then the sixth box on that sheet is allies. So, not just self-reflection, but reflection with others that you could gather in your world that are, accountability partners, truth tellers, cheerleaders. But you don't want any one of those alone. You want to try and find a combination, because if you just have cheerleaders that go, you're great, you're just going to make it, you'll do it. No, you want some people that have some structural answers for things that you don't know. That's another thing about the joy thing. Something to do with my family. I couldn't say I don't know to people. I felt embarrassed. I felt hard, but it's one of my favorite phrases. I don't know. You know, when people start to go, I wonder, you know, and they start to have a conversation among each other and they don't know. And I just sort of hold my phone up. I go, gee, I wonder if there's some way we could maybe get an answer to that question sooner than us trying to figure it out ourselves. Oh, damn it. That to me, that's one of the big values of what the internet has done is collapse the avenues to get information. You know, it still astounds me that people have actually cataloged things that are cataloged. I mean, who's doing all that? I don't do that. I just go there and find it. I want to find the list of every book this person made, and there's 30 places to find that. How does that even work?
The internet is a wild place, and I think only going to get more wild as...
Well, it's going to get more wild with AI.
Yeah, it certainly is. Okay, well, we're at 30 minutes, so I'm going to... this has been wonderful to talk to you so much, and yeah, I just learned some really interesting things about you that I will certainly take forward. Before we finish though, is there anything else you'd like to share that you didn't get a chance to, or you can ask me a question, or last couple of minutes, up to you.
I just would like to, tell people that even in the tough stuff, there's joy, and it's not an avoidance mechanism. Find the joy in everything, and you're still like cracking around the edges. No, it still sucks. I don't buy that. You need to do a little work about that. And there's even joy in that. And I tell my kids as they go out in their career, I don't tell them to do a good job. I don't tell them to do your best. I just tell them to be a helper. And that's all I do is wake up and say, who can I help and how can I help them?
That's a lovely thought to finish on. Thank you for sharing that, and I'm sure others will appreciate it just as much as I did. Thank you, Anthony.
Cool. Yeah.